Methods. All right. Welcome, everyone, to our last seminar for the year.
Yay.
Well, we got like 3 weeks left in the semester. So welcome all, especially those of you joining online from the Alliance and everyone who is here in person today. My name is, of course, Ian Gray. I am the program manager of the UNT Dallas STEM Center, and I have been working on this presentation with Brandy Stockton, our counseling and wellness one of our wonderful folks in the office there. She is not able to join us today, so I will be leading this workshop, this little presentation for you. And it is about burnout, and it is specifically about burnout and its relationship to our STEM students. As I think many of you are aware, my background, I did have a physics undergrad and a master's in education with a specialization in STEM instruction. And I have been a toasty chicken nugget in the past when it came to school and balancing things with life. I have personal experience with burnout. And having done research and work on how students learn and how students engage and how students can be supported by institution and their peers, there is some real research and there is some real experience that goes into what we're going to be talking about today. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Let me know if everyone can see online or if there's any issues there. Okay, here we go. So it starts with resilience. And as most of you have probably seen before or been talked to before by various people standing up in front of you, resilience in STEM is a really big buzzword. What it actually means is the ability to change, adapt, thrive, adapt to challenges. For STEM, this is really important because what you are doing is hard. There's a lot of academic pressure. There's a lot of complex problem solving, and there is a lot of uncertainty. And so being able to roll with the punches is incredibly important for being able to get through obstacles and challenges. And the key focus, importance of preparing students to persist and innovate, because guess what? It's not going to stop when you get out of school, because for many of you, there's going to be more school. It's not just this school, it's going to be grad school, it's going to be medical school, it's going to be industry, it's going to be other places where you are applying your STEM education or getting more STEM education. And so as a result, the techniques and what we learn about here and what will help you get through school is also what is going to help get through the rest of life. So motivational speeching aside, all right, so the unique challenges with respect to STEM.
You have one new voice.
High pressure, high rigor, right? I know some of us struggle with like other classes, but generally the technical courses, especially the upper level courses, there we go. Got even more people joining. Wonderful. Okay. So we have the academic rigor. We have the difficulty of the classes. There's a lot of really difficult upper level STEM classes, regardless of discipline. What you're doing is hard and not everybody does it. Imposter syndrome. We've talked about this before. We've had entire presentations from exceedingly high level people about imposter syndrome. And so based on that, yeah, even when you do accomplish something, even when you do get through it, even when you do make that cut, when you do get that scholarship, when you do get into that project, when you get into that internship, the feelings that this isn't really, it's not me, I'm not good enough for this, still persist, despite all of the accomplishments and the evidence to the contrary. The difficulty of managing long-term projects with uncertain outcomes. That can be a semester project, that could be a personal project, that could be the nebulous, I'm going to go on to grad school, med school, next insert thing you're going on to, and dealing with that complex task and the many, many steps to get to that task. And that can be exceptionally overwhelming. And then, of course, everything we are doing right now is in the context of constantly changing technology. When I was in college, a lot of the systems like we're using right now, like AI didn't exist the way it did when I was in college, and that was just a few years ago. And in just a few years from now, who knows what it's going to look like? And that is really difficult for all of us to adjust to and change to. So there are some unique challenges when it comes to having resilience and persisting in STEM. All right, so what makes a successful STEM student in that? These are going to be things like that growth mindset, embracing challenges, the problem-solving skills, not just in class, but how you apply those skills to the soft skills, how you apply that analytical reasoning to the other areas of your life. Because everyone here is a problem solver. We like to solve and address problems. And as a result, we can use some of those skills to help us figure out how to navigate life. All right, emotional intelligence. Now, this is one where admittedly, a lot of us STEM people have a little bit more trouble with. Being in tune with where we are, understanding ourselves, our emotions, and our relationships to others. We end up so focused on very specific tasks, on very specific projects, that we neglect to think about how it is affecting us. And then we have perseverance, of course. The students who are able to navigate these stresses, navigate these setbacks, and be able to learn from failure are the ones who are able to succeed and move forward. So, building resilience in STEM students. Look at this. We develop coping mechanisms. We've already had workshops on time management, on stress reducing techniques, like breathing techniques. This is part 2 of a previous workshop that was hosted earlier this semester, which was all about time management and stress management. That is really important because we use those techniques to help keep us from burning out. It's a lot easier to stop yourself from burning out if you're able to balance things out. And of course, seeking support from your peers, from your networks, from your mentors. It is your peers that are going to be able to help you both avoid burnout and be able to navigate through it. We want to encourage that growth mindset, reframing failure. All right, so show of hands here and on the chat. Raise your hand if you have ever failed at something. Raise your hand if you failed at more than one thing.
You're gonna be.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah,
On God preaching.
failure, I'm really sorry to tell you, is part of STEM. We have to learn, and not everything is going to be a success. Not every research project is going to go exactly as you expect. Not every assignment, not every course, not everything you try to do is going to work. And we are all going to experience setbacks. The question is, how do we move forward through those setbacks? And being able to reframe that as something like a learning experience instead of the end of your world is how you get through that. Access your resources, academic support services, tutoring, workshops, counseling, All of these are resources that we have here available. This entire grant, this entire alliance is built around the concept of supporting students with peers and mentors and being able to provide you the support to enable you to be effective STEM students and effective STEM professionals. And so use those resources, participate, and promote collaborative learning, right? So team building, right? You're going to be working with teams for the rest of your careers. In med school, in engineering programs, in doctoral programs, there are very few instances where you're just going to be going out alone and doing a whole research project completely on your own, no support, never have to interact with anyone ever again. STEM is built on collaboration, and learning those ways of being effective in collaboration while you are here is going to make you an incredibly effective professional later. All right, so look at resilience in action. So we've got some personal stories, right? I don't think anyone can say that Marie Curie was not persistent in STEM. She was the only woman to win 2 Nobel Prizes. She is also the only person ever to win them in 2 different disciplines, chemistry and physics. And needless to say, faced a lot of challenges in her lifetime. And her discoveries were fundamental to modern science and medicine, radiochemistry, all of that is her work. And there's a lot of really fun Marie Curie quotes, but I did like this one. Life is not easy for any of us, but what of that? We must, think of it in like a really thick French accent though. We must have perseverance and above all confidence in ourselves. We must believe that we are gifted for something, that this thing must be attained. And this was said over 100 years ago. And yet she's still talking about imposter syndrome. She's still talking about self-worth. She's still talking about her own confidence. More than 100 years later, we have new terminology for it, but the feelings were there. The feelings have not changed because fundamentally, we are still people. Here is another one. I don't know if you are as familiar. Kalpana was an astronaut, an aerospace engineer, and she had an incredible life. She was the first Indian American woman to become a NASA astronaut. And she is, look up her story, really, really cool. Dedicated to her education, to working and inspiring with others. And I found one for her. Do something because you really want to do it. If you're doing it just for the goal and you don't enjoy the path, then I think that you're cheating yourself. It is also notable that she did pass away in the Challenger incident in 2003 at the age of 40. And she had quite the life up until then. And her legacy is still one that is celebrated today. So, thank you for attending, but I think we have our form, but wait. What about burnout? So, yeah. Resilience, all of this is really great. But what happens when you get to the end of the semester, when you are in the thick of it and you are just so over it? So, a couple of questions. Do STEM students have it worse?
No,
No?
that's being pretentious to say that we have it worse.
Well, it's all about how we define things, right? But the thing is, it is worse for STEM students generally. There are higher rates of burnout. Burnout looks different in a lot of different disciplines, but for STEM students, it has a lot of different commonalities. But more students all over the board are reporting higher instances of burnout. And we have the contributing factors, that academic pressure, challenges to time management, isolation, fear of failure, limited coping mechanisms, all the things we were talking before. Symptoms of burnout, stress, fatigue, difficulty concentrating, behavioral issues, withdrawal. So to look at this a little bit more structurally, we can actually graph this out. We like a good graph in STEM, right? So you have what is called a stress curve. And so on one end, you have boredom. This is lack of attention. This is lack of motivation. This is when you don't really know what to do and you don't really do. Then your motivation grows, and then you have performing at your best. You feel fulfilled and you're facing challenges and you know how to overcome them. And then you get into stressed. This is where those demands, they make you anxious. You're maybe overwhelmed. There may be too many challenges to deal with. And then if you persist in that without being able to pull yourself back, you end up in exhaustion. And that is where we find the realm of burnout. So burnout is a psychological syndrome coined by American psychologist that described the consequences of severe stress and high ideals in helping careers. It was specifically first identified in medical professions and other caregiving professions. So nurses, doctors, end-of-life caregivers. Again, very high stress, high capacity jobs that have a lot of both technical and emotional challenges associated with them, with limited means of recuperation for the people involved. 60% of medical students say they experience burnout during their education.
That's like,
60%.
it's probably more. They're probably just lying and say they didn't experience burnout.
And so here's the other thing. There's actually another one, I didn't include it, but 9 out of 10 students say that stress is normal and that regular stress can even be good. Like a certain percentage of students are like regular, but the thing is how they're defining stress is really important because they're saying that chronic stress is okay. Acute stress is very useful. It is a survival mechanism. It is how we can move and get through and do a lot of things. It is our body's reaction to external stimuli and helps us move through things that were historically dangerous to us and currently things that are emotionally difficult for us. But when that acute stress becomes chronic, when the body is unable to relax, when those cortisol levels never do come back down, you have physiological consequences to it. That is that exhaustion. What characterizes burnout is the fact that you don't come back from it. Sleeping doesn't make you feel recovered. Taking the things that you enjoy doesn't make you feel better. You do not feel like yourself anymore. And a growing percentage of students and professionals think that is normal, that it is even desirable, because that shows you're working hard. That is a catastrophic mindset, because when you have gotten to that level, your performance is going to suffer. And it is going to impair your ability to both recover from it and to move forward through it. So yeah, symptoms include lack of motivation, emotional dysregulation, withdrawal, feelings of helplessness, and mental and physical exhaustion. So here is a question for all of you, those of you in the chat too. You don't have to answer, but you are encouraged to. Who here has experienced this? frequent headaches, decreased performance, increase in irritability, withdrawal from social activities, physical symptoms, can be high blood pressure, that can be anxiety, panic attacks, for instance. Lack of motivation, feeling tired or drained, and one other point for that, when you sleep or when you take a nap, you don't feel better. And then, of course, difficulty concentrating because of the consequence of the physical and emotional dysregulation. Oh, yeah. It's nasty, yeah. And as somebody who has personally, at a couple of points, had all of these at once, yeah, not good, really not good. So let's look at them a little bit more carefully. The emotional aspect of it, chronic stress, irritability, anxiety, and or depression. This is the brain not being able to process its surroundings, internally and externally. Let's look at the physical. When you aren't able to sleep and when you aren't eating regularly and when your routines and your schedules are disrupted, there's increases in fatigue, there's headaches, there's sleep disturbances. All of this then feeds back into the emotional dysregulation. See how this is a vicious cycle? In physics, we would call this a positive feedback loop because each time it goes around, it gets worse. Now, cognitive. These physical and these emotional issues are going to have an effect on what you are trying to do mentally, right? The difficulty in concentrating, the forgetfulness, procrastination gets worse. And all of these issues then tie back into the emotional and the physical consequences because now you're not doing as well. You're failing at things. Balls are dropping, things are slipping, you've lost control, and now that's making the emotional and the physical toll worse. And then as a result, people tend to withdraw. They shut down their social engagement because they need to focus on work. They need to study on this. They need to do this, and this. Even though everything that they're trying to do is now getting harder to do as they withdraw from their support networks. Missed deadlines, reduced academic performance. You can actually see, if you look at the grades, you can actually see where in certain classes students just kind of give up in the last like quarter of the semester and just kind of post and crash down to the finals. Because like they'll start out really nice and strong, and then by the end of the semester, ooh, those grades are not looking as good. You'll generally see in a lot of different disciplines, but you'll generally see the highest exam grades are going to be at the beginning of the semester, and then at the end, it's not looking as good. So we looked at the contributing factors. We've got a fear of failure, right? Who here wants to fail at what they're doing, especially something that's really important, like a course or a project or something that they've committed to do for something else, for someone else. The pressure to succeed. These are competitive fields, and there is a lot of personal and social expectation. Limited coping mechanisms. So, over-reliance. Who here has pulled an all-nighter for an exam? Raise your hand.
No, because I know that pulling an all-nighter and getting less sleep makes you have a worse performance on your exam than actually just sleeping and doing a quick review.
Very good. I pulled an all-nighter for an exam once. Never again.
Yeah.
Because it didn't work. It just straight up didn't work. And so as a result, again, all-nighters are terrible, but there are people who swear by like, I can get it all done. And it's been proven, they've done the research. It does not work. Don't take my anecdotal evidence for it. Talk to any faculty member you've ever had and the actual psychologist studying educational pedagogy. So again, lots of caffeine, lots of stress, increase in vaping, nicotine addiction as well. It's all getting worse, and lack of mental health awareness. If you don't know how badly you're struggling, you don't know how to reach out for help, because I'm not doing that bad. I'm just trying to get through this. Everybody's struggling. I should be able to get through it just like everybody else.
Is that why vaping culture is cool? Because we need it as a crutch to get. So if you say it's cool, then it's okay.
I mean, that, and also nicotine's like one of the world's most addictive drugs, and then they aerosolized it with candy flavors, so.
God, that thing's so.
A lot of really bad, like good engineering, terrible human behaviors. And so isolation, the lack of social interaction due to heavy study demands, due to family obligations, due to the competitiveness of programs, all of this leads to that withdrawal, which makes the other areas worse. It is a vicious, vicious cycle. All right, so at the risk of sounding like a life coach, mindfulness. What does mindfulness actually mean?
The relaxation of brainwave activity.
No, being able to understand where you are as a person, being able to say, hey, maybe I should do this, like having things be organized and just being mindful of the activity you're doing and the level of stress you have. Mindfulness.
There we go. You can, very good. You can also take a look at it and think of it in terms of metacognition, thinking about how you think. And in this case, it's going to be thinking about your emotional state, how your brain, which is this little squishy organ of a bunch of neurons and chemicals doing a whole bunch of stuff. How does it think about the emotions? How does it experience emotions? The origins of how you interact with the stressors around you. Being cognitively thinking about how your brain is interfacing with the world around you and with itself, with yourself, your own emotional states. You can use that very, very fine, squishy computer to analyze your own situation. That is mindfulness, being able to actually think about how you are thinking and how you're experiencing what you are doing. And so mindfulness enhances focus, reduces stress, improves efficiency, promotes awareness and staying present, because you are able to think about where you are in relationship to everything else. In recovering from burnout, we looked at previously in our workshop earlier in the semester, we looked at breathing techniques. So taking a pause, taking a walk, being able to disconnect and reconnect. These are practices that enable emotional regulation and can facilitate relaxation. And it reconnects your body with your brain. Because if your brain is spiraling through this burnout, right, and you're pulling away from everyone, you're stressing out and you're not able to focus, you're not going to be able to get out of that if you don't take a step back, pull yourself out from that situation, and think about how it is that you are interacting and engaging with that situation. You need to change how you are thinking about the situation, because the thinking is that spiraling. You're going around the drain. So we have to change course. And then supporting resilience. The mindfulness, being able to think about your emotional states, fosters that adaptability, that self-compassion. You can talk a lot nicer to yourself if you're thinking through it than your emotions are going to when they're all riled up. And so sustaining energy over challenges and being able to achieve your long-term goals. If you can think about how you are going to approach something longer term and you think about that through a lens of mindfulness, you can actually say, okay, none of this is gonna go perfectly, but we're gonna take it one bit at a time. And as things change, we're going to adjust. But we can only look at that if we are not being run by our emotions and, oh my gosh, everything is going terribly, nothing's working, crash. So there is actual research for this, specifically for STEM disciplines and students. And so when it comes to being able to adjust this, being able to think about how you are thinking about it is the start of being able to improve your situation. So I have a little bit of an exercise for everybody. I have some fun activities. For those of you who are online and don't have like a piece of paper, you can follow along, and I encourage everybody to do this later. Everybody take some paper. Here we go. There we go.
Narcissism lead to burnout.
All right, so here we go. Bad. We're gonna draw along with this. So. Why do I show this? Why do I bring this up? First, a lot of us don't consider ourselves necessarily artists, and this does not require a lot in the way of artistic ability here. It is some circles and some lines. But we can look at a map of emotions, right? We can see and we can think about where we are currently in this map of emotions and put them in relationship to each other, right? And so you can draw this out, you can think about this, but one thing to think about is when you're very stressed, right? And somebody asks like you, how are you feeling? And the answer is, I don't know. I don't know how I'm feeling. Have you ever said that before?
But I feel like that's like.
And so that I don't know what I'm feeling is the antithesis of mindfulness. That is not being aware of your own emotional state. And techniques like this, just drawing out some little happy or sad faces, can help you put words to what you are feeling. Because if you are feeling burned out, if you're actually feeling like really burned out, it's not, I feel burned out, typically. It's, I feel tired. I don't feel good. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't feel like I can do this anymore. We can put words to it, but if we don't recognize what that is, you aren't going to try to adjust your thinking to be able to change it. So we're gonna use this a little bit, all right? So we got our little faces here. And you don't have to use little faces, but I do think they are useful. And flip your paper over.
Oh.
Yeah, or you can get another piece of paper. There you go, pass them down. And we're gonna create a graph. Again, we love a good graph in STEM, right? All right, for those of you following along online, you can do this activity with us. You can do it afterwards. If you put your email in the chat, I will send you these links and this activity. So on your y-axis, up and down, I want your energy and your motivation level on a 10-point scale. And then on your x-axis, what is a typical week, Monday through Sunday? Or if you're feeling ambitious, what does a semester look like from start of term to the end of term, 16 weeks? And then on that, what does your emotional state, what does your energy level relative to this happy, this excited, this furious, that high versus low energy state, what does that look like relative to a typical week or your whole semester or both? So map out where that is and recognize where the low energy is, identify where the high points are, and think about what triggers those different energy states. Is it events? Is it assignments? Is it an activity? What is it that is feeding into your ability to look at different energy states? And then reflect on where that looks like. The other activity, I know we got a bunch of students who have to run now, is a reframing exercise. And so this is taking a challenge that you are currently facing and reframing it into something that you can benefit from. And then finally, we have our resources and support on campus. And very end, there you go. So this is the QR code. Please scan it for the feedback. And we'll take the last 10 minutes to go over questions and to go through any of the other activities you would like to take a little deeper dive on, like the reflection exercise. All right, so we'll go back for just a bit. So looking at, say, like the reframing exercise real quick. If we take a challenge, so a current thought. So what you want to do is you want to divide your paper into two columns. And on one side, you have the current thought, and on the other side, you have the reframe. And so the current thought is going to be your current worries. This is what are the problems you're having right now, challenges. I'm never going to pass this class. It's too hard. I'm not good at public speaking. I can't do this presentation. This is my mistake. I ruined my chances. I missed the deadline. This is the end of the world. And then how do we take a step back and reframe that into something that is actually productive? Because it's all about how we think about it, right? I'm struggling with this class right now, but I can improve. Am I going to the office hours? Am I getting tutoring? Am I working with my peers? Am I doing everything in my power to improve in this? Or are there other things I can do? Have I asked for help yet? Or am I just struggling alone? Is this something that I can get better at, right? Public speaking is a skill. I can practice it and I can work with people who do this and I can learn, I can get these skills. This is a mistake. I made a mistake. Here's what I learned and here's how I'm going to do things differently to not have this happen again. These are all examples of being able to reframe something. And now what you can do to grow from that challenge is what you want to be able to take away from that. Again, finally, just as a quick wrap up, we do have additional resources and support, both here in North Texas at your own institutions. All of these are available to you. And we here as an alliance are here to support you in STEM. And so finally, leave you with a fun little quote. I have one little quote at the end, right? Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Winston Churchill. There you go. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming out today for our final wellness workshop of the year. From UNT Dallas and to all of our friends in the Alliance, thank you so very much. Have a wonderful rest of the year, and as you take on the rest of your semester, remember to think about how you are approaching this. And that is how we can get through.